little tips for Jasmine Flower, which is the first piece, A1, in the ABRSM Grade 1 guitar book. In the opening phrase, we have to be very careful when we're going between the open string, so that's the second string, that's B, that's our first note, and the note of D, which is fret 3 on string 2. We want to make sure that our hand position remains consistent. What I wouldn't want to see is something like this, where we have this hand position for the open string and then this hand position for the fretted note, or the other way around, where we have this hand position for the open string and then this position for the fretted note. One thing you can practice is just going between those first two notes, B and D, making sure that our hand stays in exactly the same position. And I'm sure that your teacher has told you that the left hand thumb should be roughly in the middle of the guitar neck and behind the second finger, roughly behind the second finger. Everybody's hands are slightly different, and so it may not be exactly there for you. If you have bigger hands than me, your thumb may be a little bit higher. However, what we wouldn't want to see is the thumb coming over the top, or the thumb doing something like this, being on its side or being bent in this way. It should be nice and flat and pretty much vertical. So let's try that little exercise together. B, D, B, D. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, if you're having difficulty with that, or your hand is moving a lot, pause the video and spend a little bit more time with that exercise and see if you can make a real improvement. Now, quite apart from Jasmine Flower, if you have that habit of having a different hand position for fretted notes and open strings, you could practice that exercise with every finger. So let's try it now with the first finger. B, C, B, C. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now with the second finger. Now with the third finger. And now with the fourth finger. And if you get really good at each finger individually, you can do a combination of all of them. Another thing you should be very careful about in that first bar is that you use a different finger for the two fretted notes. Now, what are the two fretted notes in this bar? We have D here, which is string 2 and fret 3, and then we have G on string 1 fret 3. And I would suggest that you use the third finger for D and the fourth finger, the pinky, for G. Now, why is that? You might find that you can play it just very well with one finger, either the third or the fourth. Well, one thing that you have to be able to do when you play the guitar is move smoothly between a pair of fingers. So here in this case it's 3 and 4. We want to be able to change between those fingers without some fingers getting tucked under the guitar or fingers sticking out like this, and also without a gap between the notes. We don't want this. What you might find is, because those fingers are weak, you might find that you feel you have to take one finger off before placing the other. Well, I would like to suggest that you persevere in trying to make the change between those two notes as smooth as possible. Now let me just slow it down so that you can see exactly what I mean. So here we have D, and now we're going to get the fourth finger. I'm wiggling it now. We're going to get that finger ready on G, and we're only going to lift that third finger, you see, as we play G. And the same the other way. So we play G, and then we get the third finger ready. I'm wiggling the third finger now, and we only lift the fourth finger when we play D. So smooth movement between those two notes. Now I'm sure if you are preparing for your grade 1 that you're working very hard at the scales and arpeggios. And well, there's a very handy arpeggio which deals with just this thing. It's the G major arpeggio. And in that arpeggio, we need to be able to change between those two fingers. We don't want to be jumping a finger like this, which I'm sure you can hear is much more disjointed or staccato. We want that to be as smooth as possible. And so in that arpeggio, you can also work on smooth changes between those two fingers. If you practice it as a separate exercise, just going between those two fingers very carefully, you'll find that that arpeggio gets much better. And once you can do it smoothly, you'll find that that arpeggio makes a very good warm-up exercise for Jasmine Flower. And so I would suggest that in your practice, you place those side by side. You practice the G major arpeggio and then go on to Jasmine Flower. Now if we jump ahead to bar 7, you'll find that we have a very similar issue with fingers 2 and 4. You may be using finger 3 on D there. And both are correct, and you'll need to follow the guidance of your teacher. But we can make a very similar exercise to the one we had before. So let's say that we're using the fourth finger on D in that bar. We would practice 2 to 4. Now the change from 2 to 4 is one that many guitarists at a sort of grade 1 level find difficult. And so using the fourth finger there is useful. It's useful generally. It's going to help you move smoothly between those two fingers. But you can also practice the exercise if your teacher has directed you to use the third finger. Just making sure that the change is as smooth as possible. And if you look at bar 10, we have this same thing with fingers 3 and 4, once again, just as in the opening few bars. And so you find that by the time you get to that bar, if you've practiced that exercise thoroughly, practice the G major arpeggio and you can do it smoothly, you'll find that bar will be a piece of cake. Now there are 2 points I'd like to draw your attention to with regard to the right hand. The first is the importance of alternating those fingers, the I and M fingers. Now the I is the index finger, our forefinger, the M is our middle finger. I'm sure you're aware of that terminology and that your teacher has explained it. Now we want to treat those two fingers as you might treat your legs. You want them to walk, and when you're playing the guitar, those two fingers walk almost all the time. And if you want to be able to play fast in the future, you'll need to be able to do that. You can't pluck with just one finger repetitively and get very fast. You can get a certain speed, you know, but much faster with walking fingers. Now don't worry if you can't walk your fingers at that speed just now. That's very fast running, but you have to learn to run before you can walk. And so make sure that you always alternate your fingers. Even if you feel you can play the piece well with just one finger, if you walk your fingers at this stage, it's going to set you up for the future. And the other thing it will do is make the piece smooth. If you play with one finger, it can sound a little bit like someone hammering. When we go between two fingers, we get a smoother articulation. Now the final tip I've got for Jasmine Flower is that when you're using the thumb, make sure that you keep your hand position the same. Don't have a hand position for the thumb, which is here, and then a hand position for the fingers, which is here. Now, an example of this might be in bar 8. You might be tempted to do this. Now, why should we avoid that kind of movement between positions when going between thumb and fingers? Well, the answer is to be found a little earlier in the piece at bar 5. You see, we have to play a note with the thumb and a note with one of our fingers at the same time. And we can't play two notes at the same time with two different hand positions at the same time. We can only have one hand position. And the other thing is that it's much faster and much more efficient to have one hand position, which works for both fingers and thumb. Now what you'll find for a start is that the hand position for the fingers is a little bit more difficult for the thumb. And so it will take a little bit of practice, a little bit of perseverance to keep the hand in that position when plucking with the thumb, but it will be worth it in the end. Now I hope this brief lesson on Jasmine Flower is helpful to you. In the next part of the video, I will play each phrase twice with a gap after. And the way I'd like to suggest that you use this part of the video is that you listen to me play the phrase once and then play it along with me. So I'll play it once. And then repeat, now you play along. And then play it on your own and try and keep it in time. Then pause the video and think about how well you did. Did you play it perfectly in time? Did you play it well? Or does it need a little bit of practice? And if it needs a little bit of practice, don't go on to the next phrase. Pause the video or keep the video paused and make it better. Slow it down, try and get it as good as you can. And then put the video back a few seconds and try playing it along with me again. And once you're happy with that phrase, go on to the next. So we're trying to get away from just playing the piece through from beginning to end, which we often do with little mistakes, with imperfections, maybe not quite in time, just so we feel like we've got it done. But of course that's not very good practice. You won't necessarily get much better at doing that. In fact, you'll likely make the same mistakes every time and then practice those mistakes. So this part of the video is an aid to practice. It's to help you practice better in a much more focused and efficient way. And I hope you will find that it does that.